Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. It is me, Alana. For this video, I am going to talk about all the books that I've read from February to April of this year. So, I don't know I know what was going on with me, but at the same time, I don't know what was going on with me, where I just really wasn't filming wrap-ups or talking about the books that I was reading. I guess just life got too busy, or maybe I got too overwhelmed with work. Probably that, more likely. I regret that. And I've been reading, so here we are. I'm basically gonna just catch you up on everything I've read so far this year, and then hopefully this summer I will do a better job with just like keeping you guys up to date. So we're gonna start with all the books that I read in February and then go from there. So in February I read 5 books. The first book that I read was Onyx Storm by Rebecca Yarros. I gave this 5 stars. Listen, I know everybody is so divided on the series, and that's okay. Is it the best series ever written? No. Am I having fun with it? Yeah. So that's just where I'm at this year, where I'm just like having fun with series. So with Fourth Wing and like this series in general, I'm just having a really good time, and I'm just loving it. With Onyx Storm, obviously it's the 3rd book in this series, so I'm not gonna tell you what happens because spoilers. What I will say is I feel like the 3rd book was the most roller coastery book, and that's saying a lot because the 2nd book is right there. But I feel like we got to know a lot more of the side characters. Some of them started to really solidify themselves as characters a little bit more, and we just got more into the lore of the world that we're in itself, which I really enjoyed. I tolerate Violet. Like, I enjoy who Violet is, though her constant nagging or worrying, I guess, does get on my nerves a little bit. But I really love Xaden. I just love him as a character, and I just love his simping attitude. He is obsessed with Violet, and he's not afraid for everybody to know it, and I just love that so much. With book 3, it does pick up right after book 2, so you're really diving into the ramifications of the effects of the end of book 2. And so from there, Violet is on a mission to discover the things that she had promised to work towards researching in the 2nd book before they were distracted by all the other things that happened. And that's like me being so vague. I know, but again, trying not to be super duper spoily. I will say this book ended on a bang. I'm so kind of mad that this released in January, because what do you mean that I have to wait a whole nother year to recover and figure out what's gonna happen from this ending? Because it left me with so many questions. I'm very confused. I'm a little hurt, and we're just there now. Fourth Wing, or the series, follows a girl named Violet who has to be enrolled into the military academy as a dragonflyer, and so the journey of this story follows her through her time in the academy. And as she's there, she realizes that the people who are in power may not be sharing everything that is going on within their world, which is putting them in danger. And so now she has to protect everybody that she loves, essentially, while riding dragons. So I will say I love this series too, because it definitely introduced to me the love of dragons. I don't think I had ever really read a dragon book before that made me as obsessed with them as I am in this book. And so this opened up a whole new element of fantasy for me, which I am really excited to explore more of. Alright, so the next book I read was A Shadow in the Ember by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is the first book in her prequel / spin-off series from Blood and Ash. I am trying to read through that series finally, and so I reread the first 3 books at the end of last year, and then I picked up A Shadow in the Ember this year, so that way I could start like tandem reading the prequel and the original series and like be up to date. I'm still going slow with it, but we're making progress. And I gave this 5 stars as well. I actually really loved the story of this, and I really loved seeing how the ties and like the things that are taking place in this book, how they've come to fruition in From Blood and Ash. Like I love full circle moments. Like Rogue One was one of my favorite Star Wars movies because I loved that it like created that full circle connection between all of the other movies. And so the fact that this kind of starts to do that for From Blood and Ash, love it. I ate it up. You got me hooked. This follows Sarah, who is supposed to be sacrificed to the god Nyktos in order for her like kingdom to prosper. But when you start the book, as she's waiting to be taken, Nyktos comes in and basically says like he doesn't want a bride, and then he leaves her for like 2 years. So the catch is though, she was supposed to be taken and then she was supposed to kill him. So she's been training her whole life to kill a god. So circumstances happen and she actually ends up becoming acquainted with Nyktos, and because of this acquaintance, he does finally decide to take her on as his bride, and he whisks her away to like the god realm essentially. And from there she's stuck between actually enjoying who he is as a person outside of the god and following through with her promise to kill him in order to protect her kingdom. I really enjoyed it. You really start to see the ties of how the things in this series are really going to affect Poppy and everyone in From Blood and Ash. I'm definitely excited to keep reading so that way I can continue to see those like strings and see how they're being pulled from like the very beginning to where we see everybody in the From Blood and Ash series. The next book that I read was The Lost Story by Meg Schaefer. This is her second book. She originally wrote The Wishing Game, which I absolutely adored. It was one of my favorite books of last year. And so when she announced that she was publishing this book, I was actually really excited and looking forward to checking it out. Overall, I did give this 4 stars. I didn't think it was as good as The Wishing Game, but I thought it was still pretty good. It follows these 3 characters. The 2 men went missing when they were boys, and they escaped to this world without anybody really knowing what happened to them. And then, like, I think a few years later, they came back. And so they're famous because of this story, but then one of them made a career out of finding people. And so at the beginning of the story, the third person, this woman, goes to him and she asks him to help her find her sister because she's been missing for maybe 10 years, maybe 20 years. So she thinks that because he's so good at finding people, he'll be able to find her. So, turns out he knows where her sister is, and so they go on a journey where he takes her to basically meet her sister. And so in this book, as they're going on this journey, you start to find out what really happened to the boys and where they actually were. And you start to figure out what role her sister played in their story. I really love this. It almost gave me like coming of age vibes, despite the fact that they're all adults. I really loved the relationship these 3 characters built, the friendship that they had. I loved that it was like a soft queer story. Super cute. Also like a good strong like vibes of like brotherhood and sisterhood. Definitely recommend if you're looking for a good like literary fiction. And I am looking forward to seeing what else Meg Schaefer writes. The next book that I read was Done and Dusted by Lila Sage. I believe I gave this one 4 stars. This follows a woman who was like, I think she was a horse racer or like a barrel racer, and she gets injured, and so she gets a little scared and she decides to come home and maybe find a new passion that she can like devote herself to. And when she gets back into town, she runs into her like brother's best friend. From their like interest sparks and they start to develop like a romantic relationship. I really like this. I thought that cowboy aspect was super cute and fun. I enjoyed the banter between the two main characters. I feel like they like really had history and it helped shape the form of their relationship. I really loved that, like, so he was also the town bad boy essentially, so nobody really thought he would become anything, and he's worked hard for the image that he's created and the life that he's created. And so I really appreciate that she valued that, and he genuinely like valued her as a person and her interest in what she wanted to do with her life. And again, I just really loved how genuine their relationship was and how it just kind of flowed like naturally for them. I'm definitely looking forward to checking out the other books. And the last book I read in February was Betrayed by PC and Kristen Cast. This was the second book in the House of Night series. I gave this 3 stars. This was a reread. I'm trying to hopefully read through the series this year. I, for the most part, thought it was good. Again, it was a reread, so I kind of knew what was going to happen. It kind of refreshed some things that I kind of forgot about. Overall, this series reads like a 2010s vampire fantasy YA series. And so that's just like all I really have to say about it. That's probably what I'm gonna say as like I continue the books. Like, it reads like it's time. And granted, that's not totally a bad thing, though there are some terms and some sayings that I'm like, this is so old and out of date. But like, so moving on to March, I read 3 books. So the first book I read was Watermoon by Samantha Sotoyombao. I gave this 3.5 stars. I did not enjoy this as much as I hoped. I ended up actually unhauling it. I loved the magical aspect of this, though I think the plot was a little bit slower than I would have preferred. This follows a woman who has to take over her family's pawn shop, but the catch is this pawn shop is magical. And people can't just pawn normal stuff. They pawn their regrets. She is supposed to take over, and she wakes up one day and her shop has been basically robbed. And so she now has to go find the person who did it and the thing that they stole in order to save the shop. And as she's doing this, she meets this guy who randomly is able to find her shop for some reason. And she takes him with her on this journey through this like realm essentially, or alternate reality. I don't know how else to describe it. And through there, she kind of learns to dream for herself and make her own decisions as her own person. And again, like, the message of the story was good, and I really actually love the descriptions of the world. It was very beautiful, but it was just a bit slower than I would have preferred. Next, I read Tale of the Heart Queen by Nisha J. Tooley. I give this 4 stars. This is the final book in the Tales of Oranos quartet. And I'm so glad I finished another series. Yay! I overall enjoyed this series. I thought it was very interesting the way the author laid out each plot line of the story and just how it kind of went about flowing. This final book definitely felt complete. I feel like it ended on a pretty decent note for the most part. And I'm actually intrigued to see what else this author does. I think she actually just released a contemporary, but I think I might lean more towards her fantasy writing for now. In case you don't know, this quartet follows a woman named Lore, who is, at the beginning of the series, imprisoned by the Aurora King in his underground prison. She says it's because of like some petty crimes, and she doesn't really even know why she's been imprisoned for so long. One evening she is kidnapped and she's taken to the Sun Kingdom, and there she is forced to partake in these Sun Queen trials, where the winner gets to become the new queen of the Sun Kingdom and marry the Sun King. So the catch is, like, she doesn't really know why the Sun King wants her to partake in these trials. She doesn't even really know why he took her from the prison. But she does see this as a chance for freedom, so she dives right in. And so while she's doing that, you're also getting the perspective of the Aurora King's son. and he is trying to figure out why his father wants Lore so bad and why he even imprisoned her in the first place and who she really actually is, because he has a feeling that she's going to be a lot more important than her father is letting on, considering the fact that you have two kings now who want her. I really love this. I really enjoyed how each book you got more and more new elements to the story and to the magic. And then the last book that I read in March was Finley Donovan Digs Her Own Grave by Elle Cosimano. I gave this 5 stars. I think that's the 5th book in the Finley Donovan series. I really loved it. I really love the series. I think it's a fun time. I have a blast. I really loved the mix between serious, because they're trying to solve a murder, and the funny, because they're solving it randomly and terribly. I just really have a fun time with these books, and I can't wait for the next one. This book follows Finley Donovan, who has to basically help exonerate her neighbor because the little old lady that you've seen in the previous books is now accused of murder. She has to go on this like wild goose chase to figure out like who actually killed this man and why it's so relevant to her. Fun time. I love her and Vero, her nanny. I just loved how like humorous they are in their relationship. So if you're looking for a good cozy mystery, I guess, definitely check this out. And then we are now on April. So for the month of April, I read 4 books. So the first book that I read was The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. I gave this 5 stars. I sobbed. I knew this was going to be a hard book because of the topic and the subject matter. I knew I was going to probably shed a tear. I was not expecting to sob as hard as I did at the end of this damn book. And I should have known better, because not only was I reading about World War II and the Holocaust, I was also teaching it. So I was like surrounded by this subject matter for a good solid while reading this book. And it was not great. This story follows 2 sisters who are in France at the time of the Nazi occupation during World War II. And so one sister is at home raising her daughter while her husband is on the front line, and she unfortunately has to deal with the Nazi occupation of her small little town. And she has to stay strong and hold it together to protect her daughter while also housing a Nazi soldier and dealing with the ramifications of the final solution and their plans and how it's affecting the people around her as well. The youngest sister, she is in Paris, and she is taking a more active approach to defying the Nazis within the main hub, which is Paris at the time. And so she again takes a more direct approach where she is working actively against the Nazis and Hitler at this time. And so it's really a journey of both of them trying to figure out the best way to survive in a time where hope is bleak, and also holding on to their sisterly bond, despite the fact that it's like strained because of like past things and distance and time and different ideas of really how to handle everything that's going on. Again, this book will make you sob. Honestly, I've decided that I can't read any more Kristen Hanna books. This is the only one I will ever read because I can't handle it. I looked at the rest of her subject matter for all her other books. I can't do it. So this is it. This is my one and done, and I'm okay with that. Again, 5 stars because it made me feel something that most books don't, but can't do it again. So next, I reread The Enchanted Hacienda by J.C. Cervantes. I gave this reread a 5 stars. I really loved this book. This was one of my favorite books of last year as well. It is a Encanto-esque story. It's very much different, but it has qualities of Encanto in this storyline. So it follows a woman who grew up on a magical flower farm that is run by her mom and her aunt. Her sisters and her cousins also help out. So it's a full family of women. And each of the women have a special ability that pertains to these flowers. And so they use it to help people through various issues with like flower bouquets and stuff like that and spells and whatever else. At the time, our main character, Harlow, she's living in New York. She's one of the only members of her family that actually does not have an ability, is following this life path that she thinks she has to follow. And then one day she loses her job and she realizes her boyfriend is an asshole. And so she decides to basically uproot her life and move back to the farm and take seriously her dream of being a writer. Because of crazy circumstances, she meets this guy, Ben, and they go on this journey of getting to know each other and falling in love. But the question is this what she wants? But also, does magic have a role in this little meet cute that they had? Again, I really love this story. I loved seeing the bond between her and Ben. I loved seeing the relationship build between them. It was so genuine and so beautiful. And then I really loved seeing their family bond between her and her entire family. I loved seeing that there were these strong women who weren't afraid to really show vulnerability with each other and lean on each other when they absolutely had to, and they were willing to drop everything when somebody needed them to. So I just really loved that, and I'm really hoping the author continues on with these books because I love the family. Alright, so continuing on, the next book that I read was The Anatomy of Magic by J.C. Cervantes. So this is the second book in this, it's not even a series, I think it's just like a companion novel. This book follows Harlow from our first book's younger sister, Lily, who is a OBGYN, and something happens to one of her patients, and it spooks her enough that she decides to take some time off and go home. As she's doing that, she realizes that she's also kind of lost her ability, which is to smell flowers. She uses that smell to help people with their memories. While she's home, she runs into an old childhood relationship. She now has to deal with all the hurt and unanswered questions from that relationship because it ended really badly, and then he disappeared. This book follows her journey with that and reconnecting with this person, trying to figure out how to address the past hurt but also move forward with maybe new hope in this relationship. I really just loved seeing the family ties between her and her aunt and her mom, and then her sisters and her cousins. It's just super genuine, super love it, and I gave this one 4 stars overall. Alright, and then the last book that I read in April was Dawn of Onyx by Kate Golden. I gave this one 3 stars. To be honest, I felt like this had potential. It wasn't the absolutely best thing I've ever read, but it wasn't the worst either. And again, I feel like for a first book, this had a lot of potential, and so I'm willing to read the second book and hope that the author can build up on this momentum. So this follows a girl named Arwen who has always had the ability to heal people, but she doesn't really know where it comes from, and she really hasn't told anybody else about it. When the story starts, her brother has been away at war for a year or so. She's been the main caretaker of her mother and her younger sister. And then one night, her brother comes back, and it turns out he's basically gone AWOL, and along the way, he stole some money from the Onyx Kingdom, which is so stupid. He comes home and he basically convinces them to all leave with him, and they can sail to another kingdom and use that money to set up a new life. As they're leaving, unfortunately, Arwen gets caught by the soldiers of the Onyx King, and she's taken into the Onyx Kingdom and forced to work as the new healer of the base camp of the king. From there, she unintentionally gets to know the king and realizes there's a connection there, and she actually starts to learn more about the world and realize that not everything she knew was true, and there actually may also be something more to her identity as well because of her abilities and how powerful they are. I enjoyed this, but for the most part, I think it was pretty good. Definitely looking forward to seeing if the next book can build upon this and expand more. So I'm definitely willing to give it a try. Alright, so those are all the books that I've read so far in 2025. I have really enjoyed so far the books that I've been reading, so I'm grateful that I've been able to really pick up some good ones. I'm hoping now that summer is literally about to hit, I can dedicate more time to being more consistent and just talking about the things that I'm reading. I am definitely just riding the vibes of having fun this year with my reading, and also really working to try to finish series. That's my goal this year, is just to, whatever I've started, I really just need to finish. And so we're working on it. We're making progress, but we're working on it. Thank you so much for watching. If you made it this far, please go ahead and give it a good old thumbs up down below if you liked the video. Comment down below. Let me know some of the books you've enjoyed so far this year. If you are not good at commenting, I'm going to go ahead and say leave me an emoji. Leave me something summer related if you want, if you can. And if you want to see more videos from me, please hit that subscribe button. You are all sunflowers in a world full of weeds.